Let's just play a little jazz. Come on. You know, for me, the action is the chess. Fiend for heroes. Fiend for heroes. That is why I thought you was cool like that. I'm a cool guy.
Welcome back to Mann-Splaining, Framework's ongoing coverage of the films of Michael Mann. And yes, that's what we're calling it, Daniel. This is the second film of Michael Mann we're going to talk about today, which is The Keep, a very, very untypical Michael Mann film. I am John, one of the hosts of Framework. With me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today?
I'm very typical today.
Perfect.
Wanted to I was looking forward to this one. This is the one man film that I had not seen previously. There's a couple of TV things that maybe I'll check out for the first time. Maybe we'll get to that later, but this was the one where I'm like, oh hey, new Michael Mann, new to me anyway, but doesn't have a great reputation. So we didn't have we had more people jumping on Heat or Collateral right out of the gate, but we had a volunteer for this one, Mr. Daniel Baldwin. Daniel, welcome back. And why did The Keep jump out to you as the one that you wanted to plant a flag on?
Well, I didn't think people would be chasing after it as much, for one. So,
correct.
That's part of it. I think it's a deeply interesting movie, and I love horror films, so it was kind of an easy one for me to go after.
I had high hopes for this one that I really like. I went into us wanting to claim this as an overlooked gem. Because it's it's Michael Mann doing some supernatural shit that's a little out of his wheelhouse, but I think he could potentially do that really well. And there's Nazis involved, and anytime you have demons killing Nazis, that's fun. And the movie in the form that's available to us could not get me there. I can't unfortunately make the claim that this is a real jewel that the rest of the plebeians on the internet have overlooked.
Yeah, man. I love this movie on paper. What this movie offers, what it promises, a lot of the tone, the cast assembled. Just a basic description of what's going on in this movie. I'd be like, well, that's got to be the best goddamn movie ever, right? That's got to be a total blast. And then you can kind of like go down the list and even further and be like, it's got a real good Tangerine Dream score. It's got so many like these incredible evocative shots of Spielberg light peeking through the mist. You know, there's a giant rubber monster in it. It's Ian McKellen doing a Jewish golem story parable. Like everything about this, I'm just like, this movie must kick ass. It doesn't kick ass.
As the credits are rolling, I was getting more and more hyped. Like I figured this was, for a movie this forgotten, it must be kind of populated by nobodies. But it's like, okay, Scott Glenn and Jürgen Prochnow. Like, okay, that can be the headliners of a forgotten movie. I understand that. But then they just keep rolling. It's like, oh, Pratsky's in this.
Yeah.
Gabriel Byrne. Wow. Fucking Ian McKellen is like seventh billed in this. What, scored by Tangerine Dream. Let's go. This is going to be awesome. I was pretty impressed with Scott Glenn in beefcake mode.
We'll get to Glenn. My goodness. I can only assume something went wrong with that character.
There's a lot missing there.
Yeah. All right. So that's the thing about The Keep. It's sort of a famously troubled film. The original cut was, I believe, 210 minutes. Is that what I saw? Which is nuts. Do
we ever believe that, though, when you see that?
No.
It's a work cut, I assume.
Yeah,
I assume that's a work cut.
It's got to be the work print.
But do they allow like you to film a 250-page script and just be like, we'll figure this out later?
Well, I mean, they didn't shoot this too long either. Well, no, they were supposed to shoot it fast, and they ended up shooting it like twice as long. I think it ended up being a 22-week shoot or something. So I guess you can make it happen then. But yeah, there's no version of this story that should be the length of Killers of the Flower Moon. I mean, it's insane. So yeah, clearly that's not the real length that was ever intended, but they did get it down to 120 minutes, and even that was like testing really poorly, so they had to cut it another another half hour out of that, and that is the current form it is in, 90 minutes. And it feels like it. It feels like a film that's gotten major sequences missing from it.
Like the Grindhouse, just like a whole reel is missing somewhere in this.
Mm-hmm. He has disowned it. Michael Mann has, that is. And, I mean, when a director does that, it usually means, like, well, the studio fucked me. And that seems to be what happened here. And I don't know. It's just, was this ever workable? I've read the stuff that went down. The VFX designer died midway through, so they didn't know what they were going to do with the monster, all that stuff. But I don't know. It just feels like this one might have been a miss no matter what. Like this one kind of just, the talent assembled for this was not quite right for this kind of movie. Now, John Carpenter makes this movie. It's probably great, in his heyday. Guy we were just talking about, this seems like right up his alley. It has, like I said, some Spielberg kind of stuff in it. I mean, this is, in some ways, this movie is basically just, if you took the part where the Nazis all melt at the end of Raiders and made the whole film about that, that's the keep in a way. But that promises so much more fun than what the movie actually is.
Yeah, it's not much fun.
No. This is just not his sort of thing, and given that this is the one film that we've seen where he took on like genre storytelling, horror genre storytelling, and dark mysticism and Nazis and this kind of material, and this is what we see of it. I'm like, well, maybe this isn't his thing, maybe that we're not missing out that he didn't make more films like this in his career.
Maybe an hour of that 210 minutes was the demon pensively staring at a mountain lake off into the distance.
Early man. Yeah. I mean, that would be in his wheelhouse. And I have to imagine there was at least a few minutes of stuff like that. I mean, okay. This, if we're doing mannerisms, as we'll call them,
sure.
Putting the hyphen after the second N, things that make this identifiable as a Michael Mann movie would be the absolute absurd whirlwind romance.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
And having sort of like a central protagonist figure shot down unceremoniously before the climax. That's
He's fine,
the thing that
he's fine.
I was referring to Prochnow, actually.
Oh,
but yes,
sure. Okay,
Glenn gets back up for it. But this raises a question. Who is the protagonist of this movie?
Oh, I was wondering about this. I don't think there is one.
But before I quite dive into that, I would say that Scott Glaken is actually a pretty mannish protagonist in that he is laser focused on his sole profession, and then
laser-eyed focused. Yeah,
yes, and then gets distracted by said whirlwind romance for a little bit, but it just so happens that his profession is immortal warrior, keeping the darkness at bay. So,
yeah,
that's fun. That is like that.
As far as protagonists go, like for better or worse, that's something that's inherent to the source material.
Have you read the book?
Yes, I have.
Oh my!
Okay. I want to hear about this.
Do you want me to just do a rundown of the plot with it as well, or? I mean, I can.
To what extent is that possible? Is this?
Yes.
This movie has the feel of like this is based on a 700-page book, and they filmed like 130 pages of it.
Yeah, it's a no one listening to this can see this. This is not a visual medium, but I'm holding the book up right now. It's about 400 pages long, and shockingly, or maybe not shockingly, the movie's actually pretty faithful to the novel. I mean,
really?
It's missing. It actually is. It's pretty straightforward adaptation. It's missing some stuff, obviously, for obvious reasons, both in terms of, you were talking about the special effects supervisor dying 2 weeks into post, and Mann had to pretty much finish most of the shots he could himself, at least in terms of what the studio would let him finish. And then, of course, they hacked more material out as well. But basically, Nazis roll up into a fictional Romanian village in a fictional pass in the Carpathian Mountains to occupy a mysterious keep on the outskirts of the village, and then their soldiers start dying. And
Nazis roll into a fictional Romanian keep in the Carpathian Mountains is such a good first sentence for a pitch. Like we were talking about when we talked about Fincher's The Killer, and I was ranting about how international assassin is betrayed by his employers and goes on a quest for revenge is just a template for a movie that always works, and everybody should get to do one if they have a career. I don't know. Maybe Nazis roll into a haunted castle in the Carpathian Mountains should also be one of our go-to templates, like Die Hard.
It's the hot idea that I think we were talking about for a Predator movie, basically, which is like, what if it's Nazis versus Predator, and you're kind of rooting for the Predator for once. That is an effective premise, and it's like here they're doing it basically here.
That is kind of what the Keep is doing, yeah. I think we even said there that the way to get around everybody being Nazis is to have like a prisoner of war, or concentration camp prisoners that can be sort of our identification figure, and the Keep's doing exactly that.
Yeah, It is. Basically, well, that's what it is. And then the Nazis bring in a Jewish. He's supposed to be Romanian, but the accent's not there, and there's a reason for that. I don't know if you read into that or not, but they bring in this professor who's ailing with sclerosis.
I forget the name of it. Yeah, it's the premature aging thing that he's 45 or what, but looks
he has the Jack
75.
disease. Yes.
But, they bring him in with his daughter they're like, hey, you've studied this Keep. You need to figure out why our men are dying, or we're going to literally send you back to the concentration camp to die. And then, of course, they've unleashed this demon, or appears to be a demon, from the inside of the Keep that is kind of sucking them dry and exploding the Nazis in some really fun ways. But as he does that, it gains more of a corporeal form, and it wants to be unleashed upon the world. It's making promises to our professor, who is Ian McKellen, that he can cure him and wipe the Nazis from the globe if it lets him out of the Keep.
And that's the golem stuff that John was referring to. And there are a couple of good kills in this movie. And then it sort of falls off to where they just get reports of 5 more men were killed last night, or now we lost 3 more this time. I'm like, what? They front loaded the good kills in the early going.
Then there's the Scott Glenn of it all, where he is this mysterious warrior who has visions from.
I'm sure this is explained better in the book. I mean, I get the gist.
It would have to be.
Basically, in the novel, and basically in the film too, it just doesn't. We don't get that information. The demon figure's name is Molasar, but his real name is Rasalam, and he was once a Romanian sorcerer in ancient times that was imbued with the powers of darkness to become something more. Glaken, which is the Scott Glenn character, is who defeated him previously and imprisoned him within the Keep. And Glaken has been chosen as a force of light. That's where his powers come from. So he's immortal, and he returns to keep Rasalam from getting out of the Keep.
We get none of that from the movie. My takeaway in the movie is that they were not ever mortal men. They are just, divine / demonic beings that have always existed. The other thing that, I mean, as presented in the movie, it seems like Scott Glenn's, Glaken, his only job is to keep Molasar imprisoned under this Keep, which sort of begs the question of like, what's he doing like over in Greece?
He's vacation
when the Nazis roll in.
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to cross Europe to get to this place? You had one job type of thing,
Yeah, that's a weird one, and there's no explanation for that. And I didn't have time to reread the novel, so I don't know if there's something in the book that really reveals that. I will say that there are hints to a degree that our villain Molasar is Romanian, because he keeps saying they're doing what to my people. He says my people more than once, but that's as far as it goes. From what I understand, that cut like 25 minutes that the studio hacked out after Mann completed his version. hints at that stuff a lot more. I know there have been, and I saw one once ages ago. It was the first time I saw the movie because I saw it on television, probably back in the 90s. And I guess there are some TV cuts that added some of Mann's footage back in to pad out for time when they pulled out the ridiculous sex scene and, a little bit of the gore for the TV edit. So I guess some of the expository sequences were put back into the movie in older TV edits that have since been lost to time.
That's a weird thing they used to do. Like that TV edits would have footage that exists in no other format, and if you didn't happen to see it on TV, it was just gone. Like it wouldn't show up on DVD. What's the famous Needful Things? Stephen King movie. Pretty bad movie. They say that this legendary director's cut completely saves it and makes it awesome.
It's on Blu-ray now.
Oh, they finally released it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah, there was a recent special edition that has both cuts of that film on it.
Oh, I got to watch that. I'm sure it doesn't fix the movie, but I'm still curious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still based on a book that's not one of his better ones.
Oh, I like that one. But still it's a terrible film as it was anyway. So, yeah, it seems unsalvageable. Just like I don't think The Keep probably works if you inject a few more scenes explaining it, because I get the gist. I understand basically what's going on. Like, okay, he's a good one, he's a bad one. Then he's got to stop him. Okay, cool. Is he a person? No, I didn't think that, but it doesn't really matter, I guess, for the amount of development he's given. Like, I don't care about Glocken Trismegistus. That's his name.
Yeah, he's not a person during this story anyway. So he could have that he was a person. Fine, whatever. What I was does the book have a main character?
Not really. From what I remember, it's still more of an ensemble thing. You still focus a lot on the professor and his daughter, and the two Nazi commanders, as well as Glaken making his way to the keep. So,
well, I feel like in a book form, you could do that more. Almost like Game of Thrones is set up. Like perspective chapters, more explicitly. Okay, we don't have one point of view character that's our protagonist. In the movie, that just feels kind of diffuse. It feels like maybe should it be the daughter to be the main character of this? To the extent that this movie has a main character, it seems like it's the Jürgen Prochnow, the sort of the good German.
He
the
should
nice
be
Nazi.
The main character. Yeah.
But he doesn't do anything in this movie except for tell the bad Nazi to chill out.
I kind of like the concept of his character. I think Jürgen Prochnow is the best performance in the film, by the way. I think he's quite good in this. And I was the guy who didn't like him in The Mouth of Madness, but no, I think he kind of is like, I wish there was more of him. I wish he was more active. I think the sort of the contrast of this character is really interesting, the good German thing, which is weird considering like his introduction is him like gleefully saying to another Nazi, like, how does it feel to be master of the world or whatever. So I think, oh, well, Jürgen Prochnow is the Nazi in this. And no, he's the good one. He's the good one. Yeah. Gabriel Byrne is the Nazi.
He's gonna lecture Gabriel Byrne about the evils of Nazism later on.
So I imagined like he would have something to do with the resolution of this, Jürgen Prochnow, that is. I kind of thought it'd be something like where, you actually have to go get killed by this thing. Guilt by association, you are a Nazi in the end. But, you can at least try to help in some way. But no, he just gets shot at the beginning of the third act.
Just Gabriel Byrne shoots him in the back. Which is, like I said, about the most Michael Mann thing about this movie.
Yeah, that's something. I don't know. I think the Robert Prosky screaming sequence is a little bit insider-ish. It's just large men screaming bellicosely at each other. That's something. Michael Mann-ish.
That's an insider thing. That's not a broader man thing. The way that the most Michael Mann thing is Glaken and the daughter, humping after 3 lines of dialogue have been exchanged and being like in love now. Because
yes, I assume that's all cut stuff, or maybe not. Maybe that was it in the original.
But
version
then, Yeah, I mean, I guess in Thief and Heat, his protagonists are similarly just sort of like deeply in love and in a seriously committed relationship after one date, but there is more screen time devoted to that date, at least to building that relationship in at least one scene of dialogue. We can talk about that. Man protagonists are very decisive, and Mohicans too is very love at first sight, and Miami Vice, it's almost silent there for a long time.
Oh, I guess now I have a relationship to protect.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's just, I mean, that's being a little glib about it. I think it's a reflection of man characters being super decisive, and they all at least aspire to be super clear-headed about what they want in their life goals. And so when they decide that romance is included in what they want, they do it, just as fast as they'll shoot the second guard after Waingro shoots the first one, because now it's a capital murder beef. There's no hesitation. These guys.
I mean, even with this, they're in love, maybe stating it in this case. I get that Dr. Kuza's daughter is in love with Glacken, which okay, but for Glacken knows he's about to die defeating Molasar. That's why he's returned to the keep. Is this kind of just like, one last thing, one last screw? Kind of.
Well, his Grecian vacation was cut short. He probably had plans.
Yeah.
Mann actually shot, I guess, the ending from the book where her name is Magda in the novel, which I'm wondering if that's sort of a Mary Magdalene riff for some reason, because
probably there's a lot of
is a bit of a Jesus. Well, they even do the. Of course, this is for the film and not the novel. Yes, crucifix sex. But
yes.
in the book, and I guess in Mann's original shot ending, which I saw on the TV edit that I watched decades ago. God, I'm old. She goes back into the keep and finds him alive and now mortal. He can see his reflection, and he is just a man now. I guess he did his martyrdom and was gifted mortality at the end of it. And there are sequel novels.
Oh my!
Oh really? Okay. That does make the Mary Magdalene connection very unsubtle at that point.
Yeah,
but I can see how Mann would. I mean, what you said that was actually shot, huh? I mean. Mm-hmm.
It probably
he strikes me as
a
unreligious guy,
Man, I don't know. I guess not. He doesn't really have religion as an active force in his movies. This is probably the most, right? That's almost surprising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I guess I'm conflating his crime movies with Scorsese's a little, maybe.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that when you're describing Mann movies and characters, I think like a lot of religious terminology gets applied to it. Like, I mean, one of the things you would say about Mann characters is they're monk-like in their pursuit, or ascetic, but they're not spiritualists. They're like all materialists, and I presume at this juncture that having done that so many times, so similarly, that it's a reflection of Mann himself. So that, I guess that's part of what, like, does he make an awkward fit for this material because supernatural stuff is not in his bag, or is this just he turned away from doing genre stuff like that because this production went so badly? Is a question.
Well, I don't know. Given that this is the only real evidence of it we have, that suggests it's not his bag. I don't know, but you could say that Last of the Mohicans is a dissimilar film as well. That he's nothing else in his filmography like that, and that one's kind of a slam dunk. So maybe this one just went that bad, and he could have done it. There's certainly things in this that remind me of better versions of it. Like there's stuff in here that's really interesting. And there's certainly images and sequences with the Tangerine Dream score that they're really effectively moody and cool. And yet at the same time, I think he whiffs as much of that as he doesn't. Like, the keep itself looks really cool sometimes when it's just this big void or this big kind of negative space with the silver crosses, lining a giant wall. That's kind of cool, but I have no idea what the geography of this place is, like none at all. And I think that would help the movie if we knew what the fuck this place looked like on the inside. And, it just seems like a a collection of open air courtyards and tunnels that we presume are connected, but it's just it's just sort of a maze, maybe, but not. It doesn't. I have no idea what the keep looks like. I know it looks cool, but that's about it.
Well, yeah, they said there are those elements. The score deserves a better movie, a complete movie, to go with it. Mm-hmm. And there are isolated images, but one of the things about this is the forums that are available to us now. This movie does not look good generally.
Not really.
The picture quality is really bad, even on like the Amazon, thing that I was able to rent. Didn't look that much better than the YouTube rip that I had seen when I was trying to refresh my memory about what was going on in some of the stuff. And really the killer thing, the sound design in the cuts available are really bad. The sound mix is terrible.
It's actually broken. Like it's actually like really terrible. Apparently like that they knew that when they released it like that. So it's not like that's not even a problem like with this version of it. Yeah. It was never okay, I guess.
But that becomes such a real strength of Mann's going forward. And we've talked about that a dozen times now, I feel like, is that having a proper sound mix is the thing that separates an amateur feeling movie from a movie that feels like a real one. And this feels it almost feels like a TV movie at times. Because the sound mix is not there
occasionally. Like there's long static shots in this movie that, sometimes those can be evocative and great, like in the recent Dune, there's some things that would qualify. Or it could be something where they're just like, where do we put the camera? I don't know. How do we light this? I don't know. We have no money, no time. We're amateurs. There's aspects of it that look like a shitty old movie, honestly.
Denis Villeneuve would put a rumbling bass note under those long static shots to give them some sense of import or building towards something. Whereas when you put silence under it, you're just waiting for the robot puppets to make their little jokey jokes.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I don't know. This is the second time I saw this. I watched it during the pandemic. Just getting around to it. The Michael Mann Nazi movie. Got to check that out. And I liked it more that time. Revisiting it now, I'm kind of just like, well, I know what its deal is. It did not grow for me. It did not have like an appreciative, okay, I know what this is, so I can appreciate, the craft or any of the things that went into this. Essentially, knowing everything that happens in the movie robs it of kind of everything. This is not a real good rewatch for me personally. I don't know. Does this movie work for you, Daniel? Like, is this like a good one, or I struggle with this one. It has so much I like, but I don't like watching this very much.
Well, it sounds like you saw this on cable as a kid, which seems like the type of movie that is best suited for that. Mm-hmm. That might be you stumble on it with no expectations. You're like, wait, what is this? Catching up. There's Nazis and demons.
Yeah.
I'd say this is probably about the fourth or fifth time I've seen it. I do have a strong affinity for it. It's really grown on me over the years. It's not so much in terms of the actual writing and plot work, although knowing the novel does help understanding the movie. It makes it far less impenetrable than it actually is because it's
I could see that.
Such a close adaptation. But it's really the visuals and the tone for me, at least in conjunction with the Tangerine Dream score, because I'm a big, not just Italian horror, but Euro horror fan in general. And I don't know whether it was his intention to ape a lot of the visuals and visual and score combinations of stuff like Argento and Fulci. And I even get little, in terms of the type of softer bits of Tangerine Dream score, it kind of reminds me of Herzog's Nosferatu at times. So I don't know if he was intentionally going for that kind of vibe, but it really carries that for me. So that's kind of an in for me with the movie. But I can also see how that would be off-putting for a lot of people who aren't used to that sort of offbeat horror vibe.
Yeah. I wonder about that, actually.
Fulci makes sense. I don't much like Fulci, but I see that now that you mention it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, even those static shots is kind of Fulci-ish. Yeah.
Mann had never struck me as a I don't know, I mean, I don't want this to sound insulting, but like as that type of student of film, that like he would be a devotee of Italian horror cinema. He strikes me as, I think, to his credit, to the strength of his work, somebody who came at movies from a different angle, from from the streets. That he's more interested in putting quote unquote real stuff on screen, or in a realer way than we're used to seeing. And so I don't know. Maybe I should have Googled Michael Mann's biography before starting this podcast series on him, but I just don't see him going, doing film studies at UCLA.
It's interesting. I mean, because, he made this movie second in his career. He chose to make this one. He wrote and directed this one. So he had the interest in making this thing. I mean, I think the book was published like a year before, so it was kind of like a hot new book, I presume. But still, this is it's Nazis, it's mysticism and monsters and old world folklore and stuff. It could be not unlike John Carpenter. He got stuck doing something that was successful and ends up kind of being like, okay, well, that's the kind of filmmaker I am. He does Thief and Manhunter and Miami Vice right out the gate. Well, okay, so you're doing modern crime stuff, like that's cutting edge crime genre cinema. Then this other thing didn't work at all. Okay, well, don't do that anymore, and that seems practical and Michael Mann protagonist-ish as well, to just sort of drop that one thing that wasn't a hit and continue to do the other thing that everyone liked. So, I don't know. Maybe
I tried to steal cash one time and it didn't go well. So now I'm strictly jewels and bearer bonds. That's now a law of my life.
I would love to pick his brain about this movie. I don't know.
I think this is the one he doesn't talk about.
But I wonder. Obviously there's some animosity over not being able to finish the effect sequences. Like, apparently, without the effects, it was shot of Molasar killing all of the remaining soldiers at the end. Like, it was going to be a big set piece. They shot the plates for it, and then the studio was like, nah, we're not giving you the money to finish that one. So, he's probably bummed about all of that. And then, of course, them hacking an extra almost half hour out of his movie after he turned it in was another one. And, Paramount was unfortunately pretty big on that in the 80s and even the early 90s. I mean, Walter Hill's Another 48 Hours had 30 minutes hacked out of it 2 weeks before release.
Right.
Which obliterated that movie too. But you can't really find a lot of Mann talking about this movie except for older interviews where he referred to it as tackling it like it was a dark fairy tale for adults. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if he actually has an affinity for horror. I mean, that's not something that people are really going to ask him much, especially now. They might ask him about his opinion on Marvel movies. but no one's really going to ask.
That's what you do, yeah.
No one's really going to talk to Mann about anything other than crime or superhero movies these days. But he might have an affinity for horror.
Just how the world has changed.
So it makes me wonder if he came to it as a genre fan, and that's just been repressed since then, or if he just viewed it as a challenge, and kind of soaked some stuff up and then made his version of it.
The next movie we're going to reach is Manhunter, which shows that he has an affinity for a certain type of horror thriller thing, a little maybe more grounded. But we're talking about horror here. We're talking less maybe slasher movie and more Exorcist style thing, a supernatural monster stuff.
Yeah, this is the stuff that's like not him at all. At least the popular consciousness of Michael Mann. This is none of his shit.
One thing I was really wondering this time was, of course, like I said, it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the book. And his two big novel adaptations after this are Red Dragon into Manhunter and then Last of the Mohicans, both of which,
that's
unlike the Keith,
two, right?
have, other than his TV stuff. But Unlike The Keep, both of those he made a lot of changes. And I wonder if his takeaway from this was just as much stay away from fantastical stuff as it was, I need to make these things more me going forward.
Perhaps. I mean, I hesitate to even include Last of the Mohicans in that, because Manhunter is, for as much as Mann brings that material to him, more of it's a movie adaptation of that novel. And it includes a lot of the stuff from that novel. It's not inventing a lot of new stuff. It's hard to even call the 90s Last Mohicans an adaptation of the novel. Yeah. It's more of a remake of the, classic Hollywood film in a way that disregards most of what that did too. So maybe it is a growing process of him learning to trust his own penmanship. I don't know.
Spoiler alert to your future Mohicans episode, but the Last of the Mohicans novel is not very good.
No, it's not. It's the movie is a fucking banger, though. Yes. We can't get too far off on that, because that's going to end up being a long one. That's a favorite of mine. But going back to where his relationship to this genre stuff, the supernatural stuff, John, sounds like you at least had the same instinct as I did, that there's part of you that does want to see Michael Mann take on some supernatural demon shit.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it seems like there is some form of Resident Evil type movie by Michael Mann that could be kind of incredible.
He's a very good filmmaker. I mean, he presumably he's got a better one in him than this, I would think.
Even his crime stuff, you can do sort of Collateral has almost horror-ish sequences to it that, it kind of becomes a slasher at a certain point. And he's got those filmmaking chops to do kind of horror sequences, at least. But it strikes me as are demons a tough fit for him? Because
you got to get into the religion of it. I mean, that's the thing. This sort of demands at least a conversation about that. And I think I don't know. It's hard to say. Who knows how much of this was cut? It's exactly the sort of thing a studio would cut, conversations about the lore. But on the other hand, I don't know. I think the most interesting material in this film is basically the Molasar as the golem dealing with Kusa, and the Robert Prosky Bishop kind of having that dialogue about, or dialect rather, about, what good is an inactive god, in the face of Nazis coming in and murdering your family? Well, is this thing inherently evil if it's going to kill the Nazis? Isn't that more than our God is doing? That stuff I'm fascinated by. And I kind of wish the movie was more down to be about that. Because, honestly, the way it's presented in this film, I'm kind of on Kuza's side. Even he's it's a monster, but he's at least, his goals align with yours a little bit at least. And I'm kind of interested that the movie is making that side of the debate quite palatable, and not necessarily even in just a satanic deal way, and just sort of in practical terms, it's the guys who will just shoot you in the head for existing versus this monster who will kill them for you and save you. And, I don't know at this point. I'm kind of let's hear the monster out a little, I'm okay with that. And I think that's kind of cool, but I don't know. It almost feels like I'm not actually supposed to be thinking those things, it's a little more one-sided and black and white than it initially feels. Yeah.
Maybe the extra half hour would help color that in a bit, but it does seem like the movie kind of takes for granted that we're going to see the golem metaphor and just accept that, maybe even using our historical perspective, that the Nazis are going to be defeated anyway.
Right.
And releasing the demon would be a greater evil than the Holocaust. They said, not entirely convinced by that within the four walls of the film. With what the Kuza and the Jews are facing with the Nazis, it seems like rolling the dice on Molasar is a much better option. So,
there's a good horror film that can be about that. And you can, be along with them on that route, on that path. And then you're just oh, well, it really is bad as it turns out in the end. That's kind of an interesting movie. And that's, I think, the most interesting thing you can do with this material. At least it's what I want. And I do like that that they do sort of the Abraham asking him to, or God asking Abraham to kill his child thing at the end is kind of cool too, but even that is at that point it removes all nuance. It's just like, oh well no, I won't help you, monster, at that point. So it's all great on paper, like a lot of this film, and kind of just flattens into the least challenging, most expected version of it by the end.
We have not talked about McKellen much here. Should we do that?
Absolutely. I think this is the worst performance of his career.
I don't know what I would give that to. It's the worst I've seen of him, but I haven't seen everything he did in the 80s.
I think he would agree with you. I was reading up a little bit on it, and apparently he had prepared a Romanian accent for this movie, and then got on set, and Mann asked him to do a Chicago accent instead. And
that's
the most Mann thing.
That sounds like a gag.
but and then McKellen has said that it is one of the worst filmmaking experiences of his life.
Oh man.
No. Well, it's 80s prosthetics for starters. That's not a good place to start from. It's got to be an unpleasant physical experience. Well, and then the accent's all fucked up because it seems like all his dialogue is ADR'd at a certain point.
Almost all the dialogue in
weird.
this looks ADR'd. Yeah.
Because he's affecting like an old man accent for the first 2/3 of his performance. But then when he gets young, he's normal and vile again and blah, blah, blah. But cuts back into the old man accent before the disease is given back to him. So it's very strange, and not in a good way. Whereas
that's got to come from not knowing what the accent is supposed to be.
It may well.
Is this Chicago enough for you? Yeah, right. He's a theater actor at this point, right? I mean, this is early film for him, so I feel like he can't shake the theater actor. Exactly. It's very broad performance from him. And, obviously this is a guy who's Gandalf. He can do broad eventually, but this is the kind of performance where I'm almost just like, wait, is he actually a bad actor? Was I wrong all along?
Oh, no.
I know, but it's
the filmmaking around him is so evident. Like, this is not serving anybody well.
Mm-hmm. You can kind of see the bag of tricks, though, is what I mean. I can kind of see what he.
Well, there's a lot of Gandalf voice in his old man voice that feels way more affected coming out of a 40-year-old McKellen than a 70-year-old one.
Yeah, I mean, no, he's wonderful as Gandalf. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just, this is not good work, unfortunately. And, it's a shame because you get excited seeing Ian McKellen as Dr. Kuza. It's like, that sounds interesting. And again, he does have the most interesting dramatic stuff to deal with in the film. But
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's supposed to be the guy who,
I was just going to say, I kind of like Prochnow more, mostly because he's
he's the best thing. He's the best one.
Well, but I think even from a writing standpoint, he's the best rounded character in the whole movie because not only is he the good German soldier who hates fascism and the Nazis, the book that Gabriel Byrne finds on his desk was apparently an anti-war German book that was written at the time. So
that's good.
That's good. To the point where, kind of surprised Gabriel Byrne didn't just shoot him in the head on the spot after he found it. But what I love about it most is that it lays out over and over again that he cares about his men because they're under his protection, but he hates the Nazis, he hates the war, he hates everything about it. But it doesn't let him off the hook. Gabriel Byrne calls him on the fact that, well, you never deserted and joined the resistance. You stand around bitching about this all the time, but you've done nothing to stop a single bit of it. And he just comes out, fires right back and says, yeah, you're right. I'm a coward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's the arc that I wanted to be that's important, I think. Yeah. Make that connected to the main story. And I think you're really cooking with something there. Yeah.
And a contrast with Kuza, who's got the fire in his belly and a righteous cause and goes about it the wrong way, too far with the demon stuff. And, one has the right intentions and doesn't go far enough, and one has the right intentions and goes too far. Maybe there's something there. When you're hacking out half an hour movie at a time, it's not going to come through very cleanly.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, the other thing that occurred to me, maybe a trouble with Mann doing demon material, or but maybe a way that this could have become more of a Mann movie is the defining characteristic of a Mann protagonist to me is that they are not sellouts. You know, that they live on their own terms, come hell or high water, and they will die on their own terms and all that. So somebody who's willing to sell their soul to a devil or to a, you know, a boss, a corporation, whatever, but to a literal devil, especially, like, yeah, that could make them sort of the ultimate villain of a Michael Mann movie. That there's sort of like no greater sin than to sell yourself out that way, even if it's not about, you know, turning against God. This movie doesn't have the time, or I guess maybe just he doesn't have the grasp on those thematics enough to get that across properly. But maybe, I guess I'm talking myself into Michael Mann should do another like possession movie, exorcist type movie or something.
I mean, look, if Michael Mann came out and said, I'm following up Ferrari with an exorcism film, I'd be like, oh, okay, let's do it. You know, if he wants to come back to this, you know, as an old man now and do some weird genre religious horror shit, I couldn't be more excited. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's going to happen though.
Well, it'll never happen, but what he would need to do, I think, is to not make The Exorcist. He would need to make The Exorcist 3, where you're following the cop around, and it's a murder mystery that just happens to involve a possessed individual committing the acts. Like, I think that's because then good. He still gets his police procedural elements. You know, Michael Mann's The Hero and the Terror, Michael Mann's Exorcist 3, Michael Mann's The First
Fallen.
Power. Yeah, Fallen.
Michael Mann's Fallen. Yeah.
Well, and that, especially if the murderer is a warlock that sold his soul to a demon, then that lays out the thematics I was talking about, and the hero can throw away his badge at the end to you know, free himself of the shackles of his own gainful employment.
Talking this out with you too, I think the better version of this from Mann would have been if he hacked into the book as much as he did, you know, in conjunction with the previous film version he remade of Mohicans. But as much as that is different from the Mohicans novel, he probably should have done that here. Maybe Glaken should have just stayed dead, and then at the end, Procknow's character steps up to make the final sacrifice to destroy the demon, while McKellen just fully succumbs and just goes full tilt evil. And maybe that, sure, the coward redeems himself, and the principled man just gives way to evil.
I like that.
Maybe, or I mean, they could work together to. Yeah, I mean,
that's fine too.
You know, he can come to himself and reassert his indepance, because that's
martyrdom as redemption.
Given the circumstances for Dr. Kuza, I'm always kind of going to be on his side. I think his argument makes sense. I would say, you know, like, I do like the idea of Scott Glenn just kind of being the Scatman Crothers in The Shining of this. I would prefer that to what is actually done, which is like, he shows up where he's supposed to. He's got the stupid little wing ding, and, you know, and they have a laser shootout, and that's that, you know. That would be nice if that was maybe a, you know, just sort of a feint or a dodge, that character, or just cut him out completely. Honestly, I don't think he adds anything, to be honest. If you can get Prochnow to fill his ostensible role in the finale, then, you know, you kind of don't need Glaken.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've kind of hacked it down to the point where you don't even need that. Now there's parts you don't need still left over.
Right.
And he's kind of one of them. Mm-hmm. Although now I'm thinking, like, would The Shining have been improved by Scatman Crothers having a cruciform posed sex scene scored to Tangerine Dream?
I mean, you don't want to lose that, I know, but
I had no idea Scott Glenn was such a hunk in the 80s.
Oh,
to me, he was always like the ultimate, like him and Lance Henriksen were like in the Mount Rushmore of grizzled old man character actors.
He starred in the original Man on Fire adaptation. So
Oh,
The
really?
one where, the one where Creasy doesn't die at the end, like the novel.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
interesting. You do know he was originally cast as Clay Morrow, right? Right, Al?
I did not know that. No.
Oh yeah, he shot the pilot. Yeah, they replaced him because it didn't work. Apparently.
I think for the show that eventually became, you need Perlman more than Scott Glenn.
Yeah,
you could have done
prefer Perlman.
maybe a better show with Scott Glenn in that role. Doesn't he end up playing Jack Crawford in Silence of the Lambs?
That's right, but it's not the Man one. But yes, the Silence of the Lambs.
We will get Michael Mann's Jack Crawford next time with
Dennis Farina.
Dennis Farina, yes, the most Michael. No more this bullshit asking Ian McKellen to do a Chicago accent. We're going straight to the source.
We
It
also
would have been fun, honestly, if this movie was cast entirely with Chicago actors. Get like Dennis Farina in there as Dr. Kuza. Get like that. I almost prefer that. Harvey Keitel, maybe. Like all those dudes.
He did his Brooklyn accent in Last Temptation of Christ.
That's what I want. I want it to feel like Last Temptation of Christ.
But here you go. Nazis always have British accents in films, usually, unless you get your Jürgen Prochnows in there. So why not have one where they all sound like they're from Chicago?
I mean,
it's not for verisimilitude's sake.
Irish is pretty distracting as well. I think Gabriel Byrne is one of the least convincing Nazis I've seen in a movie, by the way. This is
he's too baby-faced.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe that's part of the point, but
he is not very convincing as a Nazi, but he is loathsome enough that I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like more than being authentically German, you just need to be odious, and you're kind of doing that. So I don't know. It's one of the lesser problems of this movie in my book.
Yeah, it's a small role. He's he's a Nazi. He's the bad one. Got it. And he dies at the end. A monster kills him. It's fun. The monster's cool, right?
Who's your favorite version of Molisar? Do you like the mist with the glowing eyes, or when it's sort of rubber suit Power Rangers monster?
I like the mist with the glowing eyes for sure. I think he looks awesome when he's a mist with glowing eyes.
I think he looks. I think he still looks cool no matter what, but I think he looks progressively worse as it goes on because, of course, his whole thing is first he's the mist with the glowing eyes, and then he's very monstrous and gets more humanish as it goes on, and then you get this weird uncanny valley not quite human makeup on Scott Glenn at the end, so as he's becoming more angelic or whatever, he's becoming less human, so that's interesting. But the mist with the glowing eyes, he almost kind of looks like a fog covered Mothman when he's first revealed there.
Yeah, I should have stuck with that look the whole time. Probably, maybe you can switch it up a little bit in the final confrontation.
The mist looked pretty awesome, to be honest.
The mist in this movie is on point. I will give it that for sure. I like watching the mist retreat into a cave in backward projection or whatever they're doing. That all that stuff always works.
Sometimes taking a Nazi torso with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's shots that happen, that you will see in Mystery Science Theater as well, but they look cool there too. So fine. When he gets to looking like the big rubber suit at the end, sort of Apocalypse from the X-Men cartoon, or whatever he's then it's kind of like, okay, fine, okay, I feel like. This is where some sound design and not dead VFX designer stuff would have really helped. I mean, it's not the worst design I've ever seen. It's just maybe not realized perfectly.
Yeah.
One of the
that's what I mean. That's the gist on this movie, right? It's just not realized perfectly. And it's it's hard to hate this movie because it's so evident that corners are being cut everywhere and how there's a reach here that is exceeding the grasp.
Oh yeah, big time. But it also is the sort of thing where I'm just like, it's so far from the movie it needs to be. There's stuff in here that I keep saying on paper, this is like my favorite movie ever. Like all the stuff that is in the hopper here, all the ideas, all the design elements, all the the potential, all the Nazis having their faces exploded, stuff like this. This is everything I enjoy in a film, and so why am I like, I'm barely okay with this. Like it's something I don't see myself revisiting ever, maybe at this point. And I don't know, maybe some longer cut that people say is really good comes out, I'll be like, okay, I'll give it another roll. But yeah, I don't know. This one just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
All the cool elements aside.
Daniel, do you have any final thoughts on The Keep or the greater Glaken Tigaris, whatever, literary multiverse?
Well, a couple, and they kind of run together, because another interesting parallel I thought about this time is anytime I see Scott Glenn wielding a handheld weapon, there's two things I think of. The first thing is the 80s action movie, The Challenge, where he gets the sword fight with Toshiro Mifune. That one's pretty fun. I think that's a Frankenheimer movie, actually.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
But the other thing is the Daredevil series, where he plays a blind, mystical, sword-wielding warrior, helping the new Chosen One to defeat the evil, demonic ninja clan, the Hand. So there's a little bit of Glaken in there. Probably the better version of him. And what's funny about that is, and of course we've talked about Glaken kind of almost being pointless in the movie, especially with the extra material hacked out of him not remembering his humanity and then regaining it at the end. Without that ending, there's really no reason to solely focus on him as much. But I guess in the books, first off, to quote Russell Crowe in The Great Pope's Exorcist, the book is the book is good. If you want the really good version of The Keep, read the book. Do not read the sequels, and I'm going to tell you why. Of course, Glaken survives in the novel. He gets to be a mortal man and live a long life with the book's version of Ava. But then Molasar is reborn as a child, and then grows back into a man like an antichrist to take down the world again. And Glaken and some heroes from other F. Paul Wilson novels must come together to defeat him.
Oh, God. Oh,
and
okay.
It genuinely is a multiverse?
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Like F. Paul Wilson's Repairman Jack character is involved as a potential new Chosen One. But
Repairman Jack sounds like the Michael Mann protagonist. Honestly, that could be his.
Actually, you know what? That would be a way to go, because he's a normal dude that occasionally tackles supernatural problems as a fix-it man vigilante. So maybe that would be the man way to go. He can come back and do an F. Paul Wilson adaptation at the end.
As you described that, my brain just auto-filled in, played by Bruce Campbell.
I mean,
but that doesn't seem like the vibe of The Keep.
or Tom Atkins. I'll take either one. But
what if that's his follow up to Ferrari? What if he's like, I'm coming back to the Keep universe.
I'm
going to do this properly. Yeah,
going to close the circle on this
world. But basically,
I'll take it.
The it's called the adversary cycle because Molasar.
I had no idea.
Molasar is the avatar of the otherness, the darkness, the adversary, and Glaken is the champion of the light, also known as the Sentinel. And there's a lot of lore. It over-explains everything in the ways you never want it to. And then it culminates in Glaken taking up his literal power sword again. It's a sword in the novel instead of a staff. It is reforged Aragorn style, and he reassumes his immortality to finally defeat the adversary at the end of the world. Yeah, it's not good.
This is fascinating. Oh wow. Okay, that's wow. Thank you. I'm.
Yeah, we're getting farther and farther away from all right. Michael Mann should not be doing this. Like this material. This is not my man stuff.
Well,
I'm sure he
great.
could do a sword reforging sequence like nobody's business. But
gotta reform that power.
Angelic
sword,
beings of pure light are not really his bag.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that you brought this to my attention, Daniel. Much appreciated.
I had no idea this was part of a cycle. But we have our own cycle we have to continue with. Next up, we got Manhunter. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
That's one I've seen once, quite a while ago.
It's great.
Good.
It seems like that's Mann finally like kind of settling into himself after, he was so fully formed in Thief, and then this seems like a bit of a derailment. But that is him getting his mojo in place more or less for good.
Yeah, it's what you would expect as a follow-up.
Come back for that.
100%. Yep. Thank you, Dan. See ya. Yeah. Thanks for listening to us talk about The Keep.
Thanks for having me.